There's a type of person. You've met them before. Everyone likes them. No one hates them. They never create problems. They never say the wrong thing. They fit everywhere. And that's exactly the problem. Because one day, without anyone noticing, they disappear. Not physically. Worse, they're still there, but there's no one inside. This is the story of someone who was accepted by everyone and existed for no one. Ethan wasn't fake. If you looked at him, you would never think, this guy is pretending. Because he wasn't pretending. He was adapting. There's a difference. Ethan didn't say things he didn't believe. He said the things that worked best in that moment. And he did it so well that no one noticed, not even him. At school, he wasn't the funniest. He wasn't the smartest. He wasn't the most confident. But he was the right one. Always. If you talked to him, you felt understood. Not because he truly understood you, but because he reflected you. If you were serious, he became serious. If you were light, he became light. If you were angry, he lowered his tone. If you needed someone to agree, he did. Always. Daniel used to say, Ethan is easy to be around. He never creates problems. Easy. That word came up often. Too often. With Lucas, he spoke less. He stayed quiet. Not because he liked silence, but because Lucas trusted silence. So, Ethan became silence. With Sophie, it was different. More attentive, more present. He listened carefully. He answered in the right way. It's easy to talk to you, she told him once. Ethan smiled, like always. But inside, nothing moved. No discomfort, no happiness. There was nothing. And that kind of thing, at first, you don't notice it. Because it works. It works with everyone. It works every time. It keeps you out of trouble. It avoids conflict. It protects you from uncomfortable moments. And slowly, it becomes normal. So normal that you start thinking that's who you are, that this is your personality, that being easy means being right. But there's always a moment that eventually comes, a small moment, almost invisible, where something doesn't add up. For Ethan, it came in a simple way, a question, one of those questions that don't feel heavy until they stay. It was evening. He was sitting with others. They were talking, laughing, normal. At some point, someone asked, "What do you actually like?" A brief silence. Ethan smiled, like always. He was about to answer. He already had something ready, something neutral, something that worked for everyone. Then he stopped, just for a second, long enough to feel something. Not an answer, a void. He didn't know what he liked, not in a general way, in a real way. If he were alone, with no one to impress, with no one to avoid disappointing, what would he choose? The answer didn't come, and that wasn't normal. Ethan said something anyway, something that worked, and the conversation moved on. No one noticed anything. No one asked again. But that night, on his way home, something was different. Not big, not obvious, but real. Ethan slowed down, not because he was tired, because he was thinking, not about what to say, not about what to do, about that question, what do you actually like? He stopped in front of a shop window. He looked at his reflection. His face, normal, familiar, accepted, and yet not recognizable. Not because it had changed, because it had never been defined. He stood there for a few seconds. Then he looked away and did what he had always done. He kept going. But that night, in the silence of his room, with no one to impress, with no one to adapt to, Ethan realized something he could no longer ignore. It wasn't that he didn't know what to say to others. He didn't know what to say, even to himself. At first, no one says anything. No one calls him out. No one pulls him aside and says, "You're not real." Everything continues, almost the same. Almost. Ethan still walks the same halls, same people, same conversations, same reactions. But something is slightly off. Not enough to break anything, but enough to feel it. Daniel is talking about a project. This time we do it right. No mistakes. Ethan nods. Of course. A few minutes later, Lucas says, "It's not that serious. Let's keep it simple." Ethan nods again. "Yeah, that's better." Silence. Not long, but long enough. Daniel looks at him. Lucas too. Not angry. Not yet. Confused. "You said the opposite before," Daniel says. Ethan opens his mouth. Stops. Because both answers weren't his. They were correct, but not real. "It depends," he says. The safest word. The one that never chooses. Lucas looks down. Daniel shrugs. The conversation moves on. But something doesn't go back to where it was. Later, during the break, Sophie talks to him. "Do you remember what you told me yesterday?" Ethan nods. Not really, but he nods. "You told me to follow what I feel." "Yeah," he says. Then she continues. "But today you told her to be more rational." Ethan looks at her. There's no anger in her eyes. Something worse. A quiet disappointment. Like something is not what she thought it was. "It's not the same," Ethan says. But as he says it, he knows it's not true. Not because he's lying, because he doesn't know what's true anymore. Sophie nods slowly. "Okay." But she steps away. Not fast, not upset, just more distant. That afternoon, Ethan finds himself in a group. Different people, different conversations, like always. And like always, he adapts, changes tone, changes words, changes position. But this time, someone is actually watching. Maya. She doesn't speak right away. She doesn't interrupt. She just watches. And the more she watches, the clearer it becomes. When the group slowly disappears, only the two of them remain. Maya crosses her arms. "That's impressive," she says. Ethan smiles. "Habit." "What is?" "How you change." "It's not a bad thing," she continues. "But it's not normal either." Ethan doesn't respond. You talk to one person, you're one way. You talk to someone else, you're different. A step closer. That's not adapting. That's disappearing. The word stays there, heavy, precise. Ethan tries to say something, but nothing comes, because any answer would just be another version, another mask. You don't even do it on purpose, do you? Maya asks. Ethan shakes his head. No, he doesn't. It became automatic. That's what makes it worse, she says. Then, more quietly, you're not choosing who to be. You're just avoiding being someone. The words land. This time, they don't bounce away. They stay. And they do something no one's words had done before. They don't hurt him. They empty him. That evening, walking home, Ethan doesn't check his phone. He doesn't reply to anyone. He doesn't look for distraction. He just walks. But not like before. Not light. Not automatic. Each step feels slightly out of place. Like something is no longer aligned. He reaches his door, stops, stands there for a moment, then realizes something. It's not just that people are starting to see him differently. It's that he's starting to not recognize himself at all. After that day, something changed. Not outside. Everything looked the same. Same people, same voices, same routines. But inside, something stopped working. Ethan began to hesitate, not because he was unsure, because he was trying, for the first time, to not be automatic. Daniel talked to him again. Same tone, same energy. What do you think? A simple question. Ethan looked at him, and instead of answering, he paused. 1 second. 2. Too long. Nothing, Ethan said. But it wasn't nothing. It was the absence of something that had never been there. Lucas invited him out. Come with us later. Ethan nodded, then stopped. Where? He asked. Lucas shrugged. You tell me. A normal moment, a small decision, but inside there was nothing to choose from. No preference, no instinct, no direction, just space. I don't know, Ethan said. Lucas looked at him, then away. All right. No pressure, no frustration, just nothing. That word again, nothing. Later, he sat with Sophie. Same place, same distance, but without the same connection. You've changed, she said. Ethan nodded slightly. I'm trying to be honest. Sophie looked at him carefully. And? Ethan opened his mouth, stopped, and I don't know how. She lowered her gaze, not hurt, tired. At least before, you were easy, she said. Now, you're just not there. The words were calm, but final. Ethan didn't react, because part of him already knew. That night, he stayed home. No messages, no noise, no roles, just silence. He sat on the floor, back against the wall. And for the first time, he tried something simple. To be himself, not adapt, not respond the right way, not adjust to anyone, just be. Seconds passed, then minutes. Ethan waited for something to come up. A thought, an opinion, a preference, anything, something that felt like his. But nothing came. Not because he was blocked, not because he was afraid, because there was nothing there. His breathing changed, shorter, uneven, not panic, absence. Like standing in a room you always believed was full and realizing it was empty all along. Ethan stood up, walked to the mirror, not to look at himself, to confirm something. The face was there, the eyes too, everything normal. But inside, no center, no direction, no base. He tried to say something, out loud, anything. I like... He stopped. He couldn't finish the sentence, because every word felt borrowed, not his. And then it happened. Not loud, not dramatic, clear, cold, precise. Ethan understood something he could no longer ignore. It wasn't that he didn't know who he was. It was that he had never built anyone. He had only reacted, always, to people, to situations, to expectations. And now that he wasn't reacting, nothing remained. Just space, empty. And for the first time, Ethan had no answer. Not for others, for himself. The next day, Ethan left the house. Same door, same street, but not the same reason. There was no one to impress anymore, no one to adapt to, no version to become. And for the first time, he didn't know where to go. Not because there were no places, because there was no reason. He walked anyway, out of habit, out of something that still moved, even without direction. He passed by the school, slowed down, stopped, then kept walking. Not a decision, just nothing pulling him in. He reached the square. Daniel was there. Lucas, too. They were talking, laughing, normal, exactly as always. Ethan stayed at a distance, not hiding, observing. And for the first time, he didn't try to imagine what to say, didn't try to fit in, didn't try to enter. He just stood there, outside. And something worse than rejection happened. They didn't notice him. Not because they were ignoring him, because he wasn't needed. Nothing changed without him. Nothing paused. Nothing missed him. It had always been like this. He just never saw it. Ethan turned away, walked faster, not running, but something inside was finally reacting. He stopped in front of a shop window, looked at his reflection, again. But this time, he didn't try to understand who he was. He understood something worse. It wasn't that he had lost himself. It was that there had never been anything to lose. Silence. Cold. Clear. Ethan raised his hand, placed it against the glass, as if checking if it was real. And in that moment, everything came back at once. Every time he said what worked, every time he avoided disagreement, every time he chose not to choose. They weren't small moments. They were bricks, and they had built something, not a person, an absence. His breathing grew heavier, not panic, realization. For the first time, Ethan spoke, out loud, not for others, for himself. I don't exist. No one heard him. No one stopped. The world continued. People passed by. Life moved forward. Exactly the same. Ethan lowered his hand, took a step back, looked at his reflection one last time, and understood the final truth. He had not been rejected. He had not been abandoned. He had not been misunderstood. He had been perfectly accepted by everyone, because he had never given anyone something real to reject. And that was the problem. He stood there for a few seconds, then turned and started walking again. Not towards someone, not towards something, just forward. But this time, with no version left to become, and no one left who needed him. Because the truth, the one no one wants to face, is that you can spend your entire life trying to be liked by everyone, and never be anyone at all. Most people don't lose themselves all at once. They give themselves away, slowly. A word changed, a truth held back, a choice avoided. Not because they're weak, because it works. It makes life easier. It gets approval. Until one day, there's nothing left that is actually yours, and no one notices. Because you did everything right. You became what everyone wanted, and in doing so, you made sure no one would ever know you. And when everything goes quiet, you're not left with yourself. You're left with nothing.